I've been watching couples break up in front of me in my office since 1995, and I've seen the same mistakes over and over again. So basically, two things can happen. Number one, it can be a respectful, calm, dignified, albeit sad conversation. On the other hand, it can turn into a dramatic meltdown mess, the kind of thing that you see on reality TV show. In this video, I'm going to show you how to avoid making the 5 most common breakup mistakes and what you can do to have a calm, respectful conversation instead of a dramatic, messy breakup. Okay? My name is Laura Silverstein. I'm a couples therapist, and obviously when people come to me, they come for me to help them save their relationships, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes the right decision really is for one or for both parties to part ways. I'm going to walk you through step by step what you can do to increase the likelihood that this conversation goes as well as it possibly can go. You don't want to hurt anybody. Obviously, that usually comes a little bit with the territory, but what you don't want is unnecessary hurt. You don't want to add insult to injury. Okay? I'm going to actually recommend that you take notes for this, because when you are trying not to hurt somebody, it's easy to get upset and forget what you were going to say during an emotionally charged conversation. So take your time, bookmark this video, and I'll walk you through exactly what you can say to help make this the kind of breakup that you look back and you know that you put your best foot forward to do right by yourself and by your partner. Now, before I dive into the 5 concrete strategies, I also really want to remind you not to judge yourself or tell yourself that you're wrong or bad for doing this. Sometimes relationships really do need to end because it's not fair for you or for your partner to stay in an unhealthy relationship, or a relationship that maybe worked at one point in your life but just is no longer working now. If you feel really confident that you've made a decision and you are ready to plan your breakup, keep watching. If not, I did make a video with 7 questions to ask yourself if you're still having second thoughts. But if not, let's go ahead and dive in. The number 1 breakup mistake people make is that they wait too long. And the reason for this is because nobody wants to be the bad guy. I don't want to be the bad guy. I remember these breakups, they're awful. So what happens is we avoid it entirely. There's always a reason why now isn't the right time, especially when things are going well, or maybe you're having fun together, okay? However, the problem is that the avoidance is actually the very thing that leads to ugly, messy breakups. Because when you don't proactively plan when and how you're going to have the conversation, when does it come out? It comes out after a glass of wine, it comes out in the middle of a fight, or when everybody's sleep deprived and stressed out. And so then you don't have the wherewithal to do the calm script that we're going to be going over today. So the first strategy to avoid this mistake of waiting too long is to plan a time and a place and stick to it. I know it's going to seem like, oh no, that person has a headache, it's not the right time, but you have to just know that there is not going to be a perfect time, and it's better to plan it than have it pop out sideways when you're not at your best. Okay, so that's number 1. The second most common mistake that people make when they break up is they accidentally give their partner false hope. And I don't mean stringing somebody along or manipulating them. That's not what it is at all. Usually it's a lack of clarity. It's an attempt to, quote unquote, soften the blow. And what happens is they give a mixed message. And when you give a mixed message, it leaves the door a little bit open. And remember, if your partner doesn't want to break up, then they're going to be looking for signs that maybe there is an open door. Okay? So softening the blow usually comes out in like this wishy-washy kind of language, saying something like, I'm not sure if we're right for each other. Okay, that's hard to say. I'm not sure if we're right for each other, and it seems really clear to you, but to your partner, they're like, oh, they're not sure. And so that's going to be an invitation for your partner to kind of persuade you to not be an ex, okay? Some other examples. I don't think this is going to work out, or maybe in the future. And what happens is then they're clinging to that door, and you're trying to close the door, but they're looking for any opportunity or hope that that door can remain open. And they might then try to persuade you to change your mind if you use that kind of language. Okay, so what we want to do instead is remember that kindness is not vague. Kindness is clarity. Okay, so speak with compassion and conviction. Compassion, yes, you want to be kind with how you're doing it, but also conviction, okay? So saying things like, this isn't what I want anymore. And I know that's hard to hear, okay? You can acknowledge the good times that you had and express appreciation for the person without giving a mixed message. And inevitably, I see this all the time in my office, somebody is going to turn and all of a sudden the tone is going to change. It's going to become a completely different kind of conversation. And your partner is going to say to you, are you breaking up with me? And that's where people cave, right? Because it's so hard to literally pull off the Band-Aid. And the answer to that question is, I'm sorry, but yes, that is what I'm saying. It's going to be hard to say it out loud, but so much better than the wishy-washy. I'm not sure, this is what I think, okay? So as soon as you get that clarity, you're giving your future ex-partner the opportunity to heal instead of having them clinging on to that hope, okay? The third mistake is kicking them when they're down. Nobody in a million years would think that they are going to, on purpose, kick somebody when they're down and make them feel worse than they already do. But let me tell you how this happens, even with good people with good intentions who do love each other. What happens is when the breakup starts, sometimes they feel like they need to justify it. And your partner might ask you, why? Of course, it makes sense to give them the reason why. If they ask why, I think it's kind to give them a reason. The mistake comes from over-explaining the why, okay? And then you kind of get annoyed about it. And then it comes into basically relitigating the fight. Now, what's interesting about a fight during a breakup is that in some ways it kind of keeps the connection there because there's energy and it's a different kind of intimacy, but there's more honest intimacy with an argument than with sort of a cold, firm, this is over, which feels a little bit cold compared to how you're normally used to talking to each other. So let them have their dignity by not adding insult to injury. So keep those conversations as short as you possibly can. The fourth mistake that people make is that they push somebody to try to agree with you. And the thing about agreement is everybody wants a mutual breakup, but it's really pretty rare. Usually it's one person that's made the decision and the other person doesn't want it. And if you try to convince your partner that this is a mutual decision, then basically you're inadvertently minimizing their truth and their feelings. If they want to stay together with you, that's on them and they're allowed to have that desire. It's just different than yours. So as much as I know that you're going to want to try to convince them to come over to your side and agree with you, you've had a lot more time to think about this than they have. So you're further along in the grief than they are. And they're in the bartering phase of the grief. Maybe they're in the anger, maybe they're in denial, but you are further along in the grief process because you were thinking about this way, way, way before you initiated that conversation, okay? So my advice is to let them have their reaction. It's unfair to expect them to be able to just hear this news and reconcile it as if they've had time to process it. So let them be in whatever state of shock that they're in or whatever state of grief they're in. It's the kindest thing that you can do as you are separating a significant relationship. The fifth mistake that people make is that there's no clear next steps. So the more that you have planned in advance, what are the next steps, then you guys kind of know what's going to happen after this conversation so that it's not just this awkward limbo of nobody knows what to do with the afternoon. These steps are going to be dramatically different regarding whether you have kids together, whether you cohabitate, whether you're dating, and sometimes it's as simple as, I'm going to go spend the night with my sister and I'll call you tomorrow. Okay, it's going to be tempting to make some declaration about what's going to happen for the next year. What I recommend to all my couples is that in this last phase, before you walk out the door, you just say, this is what's going to happen in the next 24 hours. You don't have to talk about divorce papers or parenting agreements or anything like that. It's just, I'm going to let this all sink in. I'm going to give you some time, and there's got to be some sort of separation so that they can be with this news on their own and you can be with the news on your own, because now is the very first step where both of you are going to be turning to other people for comfort instead of to each other for comfort, which is probably what you used to be doing. Okay, those are the 5 mistakes that people make when they break up. Like I said, if you're still not sure, take a look at this video here or here, and that'll walk you through clarity of making sure that you have really come to a grounded decision about this relationship ending. Thanks for watching my video.